Greetings and good day to you. This is the three laws of homeopathy. This is part two, the law of similars or like cures like. This law is so fascinating. We are surrounded by this law and we don't even see it. It doesn't even register because it's so ubiquitous. So, um, when Hahnemann was a newly minted doctor, um, one of the things that he saw was the disastrous outcomes of mercury potions and bloodletting. So it was his heartfelt desire to find something else that wasn't quite so damaging. The disease of the day was malaria, and it was taking lives by the thousands. And their word on the street also was that if you could just get a hold of this tree bark from the cinchona tree and make a tea out of it, it can really help smooth out the symptoms. It can really help with that. Well, Hahnemann, being a very curious fellow, ordered some of the tea, and he found that the more of the tea he drank, the more it created symptoms that he knew were malaria. So his theory was, I wonder if the reason this tea is helpful for malaria is because it brings out similar qualities to what is happening with malaria. Well, that's a very smart fellow, you know. And by the way, a little footnote on that tree, it's the cinchona tree. That is where they get the tree bark for ivermectin is out of that tree. They later, when they studied it chemically, they found it contained quinine, and that's where they got that medicine for that. Um, so Hahnemann's theory, let me read it for you here. Peruvian bark, which is used as a remedy for intermittent fever, acts because it can produce symptoms similar to those of intermittent fever in healthy people. So that was his idea, and he started to look at it and tried different things and tried to research and see if it was true. And then he would gather friends and they would all try, and that's how it happened. I am old enough to remember as a little girl hearing the old timers comment on hyperactive children. They would say, "Oh, just give them a little coffee. That'll calm those kids down." Well, now, wait a minute. How does this make any sense? You have a hyperactive child, and coffee is an upper. It jazzes, it energizes. How does this work? Well, if you think about it, it's kind of the same with Ritalin. How does that work? A hyperactive child and Ritalin is an upper. Perhaps there's something more profound here than Western medicine understands. The next thing the light cures light that I think is very interesting, and yeah, it's a little out there, but I think is really interesting, is the power of a parable, because a parable is something that is it can teach a teachable heart. Now, for example, um, when Nathan was told to go to talk to King David about how he had killed man and fathered this baby, this child, David thought he got by with it. And Nathan the prophet went in there knowing full well that he could just lop my head off. So how did Nathan approach him? He approached him with a parable, with a story about a fellow who had one precious sheep and the fellow who had 1,000 sheep on 1,000 hills. And David, to his credit, he realized it. And then Nathan pulled out the bony finger and said, "It is you. You are the man. You are the man." And he went into what he knew that Nathan had done. So a parable is a way, and it's been used, you can see it used more as time goes on. It really is a way for the human being to have greater understanding. Now, the last thing that I think is another really interesting type of light cures, like if I am an alcoholic and I am trying to figure out what is it? I mean, why are these non-alcoholics? How come What are they doing that they don't have this problem? I should talk to them and see what they're doing. That is not how it works, is it? No, we join Alcoholics Anonymous and then we talk to fellow alcoholics to see if we can figure out how to solve the problem. By the way, a little side note on that, the fellow who created Alcoholics Anonymous did so after he got a homeopathic remedy. Um, it is often able to really see things in a very different way afterwards, which is why homeopathy is so wonderful. So I think that's all I had as far as like cures like. The last one is the law of minimum dose. Have a great day.